You were the biggest pain in my butt to remove, but it's all worth it because this piece here is fire. Find out why you need this over that for your 8th gen. We're going to continue the suspension segment, and I'm going to show you why that was a pain in the butt to remove. Welcome once more to A.S.A.P Garage. This is your boy Dro. Like I said in the intro, we're going to continue the suspension segment. In the previous episode, if you watched it, you noticed that we installed the D2 coilovers for the front and the rear of the car. That is a huge suspension upgrade if you want to take your car to the track or have an aggressive back road driving type of vehicle. With the unboxing of today, these new upgrades will go hand in hand with installing a coilover. When you install coilovers to your car, you're basically lowering the ride height. If you're lowering the ride height, you're going to basically mess up the alignment of the car when it comes to suspension. For example, the first box we're going to open up here by Skunk2, or is already open, or the part that we're going to unbox here by Skunk2 is going to be for the rear of the vehicle to basically control the camber. When you lower a car, you're basically raising the suspension upward. You're not lowering the car down. It's a little confusing, but that's what you're doing. You're raising the suspension up. If you're raising the suspension up, what's going to happen is that your wheel has to camber in order to adjust for that basically raising or lowering of the car. Now, the stock part that comes with the vehicle is not adjustable, so that's why it cambers in. Your wheel would camber in. This basically is from the rear passenger side. If you're looking at the car, let's say this is your wheel, I lowered the car, and what's going to happen, or I raised the suspension, what's going to happen is that the wheel is going to camber in order to adjust for that ride height. Now we need to have a part that's going to adjust that wheel back out. These 8th gens suffer from that. If you lower the car, you are going to get that rear camber in, which I'll show you here. So to combat that, we purchased the Skunk2 Camber Kit. I'm going to open this up now here. Okay. And what this does is that not only does it give it a nice fresh look with this anodized gold color that I chose here, because I want things to look different on the wheel well, but what it does is that, let me just take this plastic here piece off so you can see. Okay, let's take these guys off. Is that it spins in order for me to adjust that camber. So if I spin this outward, it's going to bring the wheel back straight. The stock suspension does not have that adjustability. So that's why every 8th gen will need rear camber kits in order to adjust that rear camber. It doesn't have alignment for the rear camber on the 8th gens. So you need this part. You could do Skunk2 or other brands. I say Skunk2 is the best one, to be honest, for the 8th gen because of the quality and customer service from them, I would say. The next part that we're going to unbox is for the front. Now, when you lower the front of the car, the lower control arm also misses a line, and you're going to have a dribble like this. It's going to try to raise it up from one side, giving you increased negative camber. We want to fix that and make sure that that alignment of that lower control arm is back down to straight or 0 degrees as possible, closer to the 0 degree mark as possible. What we have here is from Aerogenics. Aerogenics basically created the spacers that go in between your ball joint and the lower control arm to basically align the lower control arm back to a level where it's closer to the 0 degree mark. Right now it's towards the negative, giving you that negative camber or that increase in negative camber. So let's say this is your ball joint, which this is the passenger side ball joint. Let me take this guy off here. And it goes just like this. You're going to basically insert this in between the ball joint as it is right now and the lower control arm. So I have an image here because I already did this for the passenger side of what the degree is on the front driver side without the aerogenic spacer. You're looking at an increase of negative camber. Now, if we go to the front passenger side where I installed the spacer, you're looking at a closer degree to 0, where is where we want the lower control arm to be. This spacer helps out with that. And if you are lowering your car, you definitely want to go that route. What I also decided to do, because you would have, if you have the stock ball joint, you would have to remove these studs to use the larger studs that the hardware brings in order to adjust to the spacing of this spacer. What I did, Aerogenics also sells in their website a ball joint without the studs in them, which will be the better route. If you're changing everything, might as well change the ball joint because your ball joint might be looking as worse than this. So I would say change your ball joint so that way you have everything new. You have new coilovers, you have new ball joints and other components that you may need for the front suspension in order for everything to work together. And use the extended studs that the ball joint doesn't bring. It'll be easier instead of smashing these guys out from the stock one. So I bought the ball joint, I bought the spacer, and I purchased the rear camber kit for the from Skunk2. In the box of Skunk2, they do give you a couple things. You do have a decal from Skunk2, and you have the folder that comes with Skunk2 and the authenticity of the part. That's all that comes in the box. Aerogenics doesn't give you much. It's just basically what you purchase. It's just the part and the hardware inside of the box. For the passenger side, it wasn't easy to remove the rear control arm, the upper control arm. So I'll show you what I had to do as I'm doing it to the driver's side. For the driver front, to add the spacer, we have to take off a lot of parts. So we're going to get to that now. Let's go under the wheel well and start doing these repairs. Okay, so we're back under the wheel well, and what we have to remove is this ball joint here. It's a little difficult because it may be seized with the hub assembly here. To remove the ball joint, you have to take off 2 nuts, one on each side and 1 bolt in the middle. So the bolt also needs to be removed for the ball joint. It has a crown nut. We have to remove the clip that's holding that, and then we can remove the rest. But I'm going to start tackling the bottom ones first here, which should be a 17 millimeter. Yep. Okay, so to start down here under the wheel well, we have to remove the ball joint, which is this guy right here. which this is your lower control arm, and this is what's unleveled in the picture. To remove the ball joint, you have to remove 2 nuts, left and right side, a stud right in the middle, so a bolt right in the middle, and on the top there's a crown nut, and that one has to be removed with the clip also. So once you have that off, you could possibly take down the ball joint. Sometimes you can't because it may be seized with the hub assembly. If it's seized with the hub assembly, then we have to remove more parts like I did on the passenger side. We have to remove the hub, and we have to remove the steering wheel rack for the connector rod here. So let's get to that. I'm going to start with removing the nuts and the bolt in the middle. Let's see if I could get this removed. Okay, it's removed. Okay, that's the other one, and now we have the metal stud here. I'm gonna leave that one on for now, and I'm gonna start tackling the crown nut on the top. So for that, we have to remove the clip that's there. Let's see if I can. That piece is off. All right, so I see that there's going to be a little bit of a problem. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to remove the hub with the ball joint and remove the ball joint from the lower control arm. But for that, I have to remove the steering wheel rack. So I'm going to do that now. And for that, we have to take out a pin that's holding the nut. Let's take that out. So that was a hassle, but we got it out. So now we're going to remove this nut here that's holding the steering wheel control, this rack here. So let's see if we can remove it out. That's off. That's good. So now I'm going to have to remove the caliper, put that into one side, and then I'm going to have to remove the suspension, the coilover bolts here, and then I'm going to have to remove the nut, the axle nut, to remove the whole axle out. And then I could possibly get to the ball joint screws here and remove those out, because it's going to be hell to take this out of here and have a swing to it, because that's what I need. I need to swing at it so I could get this out of here, just like I did with the steering wheel rack. So let's get this started. I'm going to start with the suspension in the top. Okay, so we got those bolts out for the coilovers, and now we're going to remove the caliper bolts here. So the caliper is out. I'm going to hold it here. So remove the calipers. We removed the steering wheel rack, and we removed the nuts for the ball joint. Now I have to continue with the axle nut here, and then we'll start removing the ball joint. I also need to disconnect those speed sensor. So we're gonna do that, the wheel speed sensor. So we're gonna do that, and everything should come out pretty neatly there. I decided to wrap the caliper because we did some work on this in the previous episode, and I don't want it to get scratched up. So let's start with removing this axle nut here. To remove the axle nut, you have to insert a flathead in the groove here, because there is an arch basically that is hammered in order for it to lock the axle nut. So we have to basically open that up so it could spin, or it won't spin. That should probably allow it to spin. We'll check it out. Let's see. So for the axle nut, you are going to need a larger socket. That socket size is let's see, what's this? 36 millimeters. So it's this ginormous socket. And you need a good power tool to remove this, because this is torqued at 181 pounds. I won't be able to torque it back when we add it back on. The car has to be on the ground in order to torque this to 181 foot-pounds. So see if it spins. There we go. That was good. And now what we want to do is check to see if I could get this out. So we're just going to bring the axle out of this. Okay, that's good. Let's get it out of here. A little better. Let's move this axle out of the way so you can see it. I'll leave it there for now. But this is the crown nut here. And what we have to do is that we have to remove it off of the ball joint. And then I could see if I could remove the ball joint with everything out. So this is what I was talking about. If you can see it here, this is not going to come out of there because it's seized. So I have to hammer it out. Let's see if I could do it. Sometimes it doesn't come out, sometimes it does. We'll find out right now. Let me get a good grip here. Yeah, like this. There we go. So it comes out where you're hitting it because it seizes up in there. This doesn't look that bad like the passenger side, but I'd rather get new ones, and that's what I did. So let's start installing all of this back and installing the Aerogenic spacer.